Welcome to Bold Revolution channel. Today we're doing a deep dive into a really powerful book, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy.
We are indeed. And the core promise of this, it's quite simple, but also really profound.
What is it?
Basically, the compound effect is the strategy of reaping huge rewards from what he calls small, seemingly insignificant actions.
I love that because it just flips the script on this constant pressure we all feel to make these, huge life-altering changes overnight.
Exactly. This isn't about quick fixes. It's about getting back to simple fundamentals and just applying them consistently, day in, day out.
But there's a catch, right? There has to be a foundation for this to work.
There is. And he lays out two core tenets right from the start. First, and this is a big one, you cannot improve something until you measure it.
Okay, that makes sense. Awareness is the first step.
And second, you have to take 100% responsibility for everything that happens to you.
Yeah.
No excuses.
That focus on accountability is huge. So the whole idea of this deep dive is that these small, tiny changes you make every single day, they compound.
Right, into these drastic results. It builds momentum, it builds courage, and eventually it helps you reach way beyond what you thought your limits were.
So today we're going to unpack exactly how that works. We'll get into the power of those small changes, the importance of choices.
And then how to master habits, and finally, how all of this builds into what the author calls Big Mo, momentum. Let's find out more.
Okay, so let's dive right into the compound effect in action. If the formula is so simple, small choices plus time equals success, why isn't everyone wealthy and fit and happy?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's what Hardy calls the simplicity trap.
The simplicity trap. What does that mean?
The problem isn't that the actions are hard. It's the opposite. They're almost too simple. They're so subtle, so insignificant feeling.
That they don't give you that immediate payoff, that rush.
Precisely. You don't see an immediate result, so you quit. You assume the effort was pointless or that the whole system is, a myth.
So someone starts a new running habit, they're all fired up on day 1.
Exactly. But by day 8, what's happened? They're still overweight, their knees probably hurt a bit, and they haven't seen any visible change on the scale.
And the little voice in their head says, this isn't working.
And they stop. Or maybe it's financial. Someone starts putting money into an IRA, they check it after a year, and the gains look, tiny. So they think, what's the point? And they stop contributing.
It's a total misunderstanding of how exponential growth works. We are so conditioned to want and see linear results, A to B.
But this isn't linear. It's an exponential curve. And the biggest, most dramatic gains are always, always delayed.
And that's the core formula he lays out, right?
It is. It's universal. Small, smart choices plus consistency plus time equals a radical difference.
The key words there seem to be consistency and time.
They're non-negotiable. Without them, a smart choice is just a random, isolated event. It has no power.
Okay, to really make this tangible, we have to talk about the magic penny analogy. This is, I think, the best way to visualize what we're talking about.
It really is.
Ah!
So imagine this choice. I offer you $3 million in cash right now. You can walk away with it today.
I'm listening.
Or you can have a single penny that doubles in value every single day for 31 days.
The classic test. I think most people would just grab the $3 million and run.
Of course they would. That's that microwave mentality we were talking about. They want the result now. For the first couple of weeks, it looks like a joke.
What are the numbers like?
On day 5, it's only 16 cents. By day 10, you've got a mere $5.12.
So your friend with the $3 million is laughing at you.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Even on day 20, with only 11 days left, the penny has only grown to about $5,200. You were probably feeling incredibly foolish at that point, full of doubt.
And that's the hurdle. That's the emotional point where most people would just give up. The work feels completely out of proportion to the reward.
But this is where the curve starts to go vertical. The compounding force, which was invisible before, it's been working relentlessly the whole time.
And then it just explodes.
It does. On day 28, the penny hits 1.3 million. Day 29, 2.6 million. Day 30 is the tipping point.
It finally passes the 3 million.
It hits 5.3 million. And then on the very last day, day 31, that single penny finishes with a staggering $10,737,000.
Over 3 times the instant cash payoff. It's amazing. But the magic, as you said, it was only visible in those last few days.
Which proves that the consistency and the patience you need to get through that long, boring lag period aren't just helpful, they're absolutely required to unlock the potential.
And we can see this play out in a more realistic way with the story he tells about the three friends, Scott, Brad, and Larry.
Yes, this is a fantastic illustration. Their lives are tracked over 31 months, and it shows exactly how these tiny daily choices can lead to wildly different places.
So Larry is the control group, right? He just maintains the status quo.
Yep. Doesn't try to get better, doesn't get actively worse, he just kind of exists. At the end of the 21 months, he's in the same place. Maybe, as the author says, a little more bitter.
Then you have Scott. He's on the positive path.
Yeah.
And his changes are, again, so small.
Almost unnoticeable. He cuts just 125 calories from his diet each day. That's like skipping the cheese on a sandwich or having one less soda.
And he adds a little bit of walking. Not a marathon, just parking farther away, taking the stairs.
And the third piece, which is crucial, is that over that whole period, he dedicates about 1,000 hours to self-improvement. He's listening to audiobooks on his commute, reading good books, instead of watching junk TV.
Okay, so then there's Brad, the negative trajectory.
And again, his choices are equally tiny and so easy to justify. He adds an extra 125 calories a day. Maybe he tries a new cheesy recipe he saw on TV, as one extra drink a week.
And he fills his downtime with more TV instead of reading. Small, seemingly harmless choices.
And for the first year, year and a half, 18 full months, you couldn't tell them apart. Their weight, their happiness, their bank accounts, all look pretty much the same.
There's that patience hurdle again. If you stopped the experiment at month 15, you'd say the whole compound effect thing is a wash.
Exactly. But under the surface, those tiny changes are accumulating. It's like water slowly filling a dam. And then around month 25, you start to see it.
Scott is looking a bit fitter. Brad is maybe a bit more sluggish.
And by month 31, the difference is, oh, wow, it's shocking. Scott has lost 33.5 pounds.
And Brad has gained 33.5 pounds. That's a 67-pound difference between them.
All from a daily swing of just 250 calories. That tiny differential, compounded over almost 1,000 days, created this massive divergence in their lives.
And it wasn't just the weight, was it? There was a ripple effect.
A huge one. Scott's new energy and all the knowledge he'd gained led to a promotion and a raise. His marriage was thriving.
While Brad's physical decline led to a mental one, he was unhappy at work, which led to more stress, more blame.
And his marriage was struggling.
Yeah.
It shows how one small choice, like eating slightly richer food, can start a predictable negative chain reaction that affects everything.
So this isn't magic. It's actually predictable. It's measurable. The chart in the book that shows their results versus time is so powerful. You see the line stay flat for so long, and then boom. After 27 months, Scott's line shoots up and Brad's just plummets.
It's proof. Simple daily disciplines versus simple errors in judgment. They lead to radically different but totally predictable outcomes. The person who seems like an overnight success was just making small, smart choices consistently for a very long time.
Which means we have to consciously fight that microwave mentality. This idea that we deserve instant results for everything.
It's everywhere. We're marketed to with quick-fix diets, get-rich-quick schemes. It completely distorts our idea of what real achievement takes.
We want the lottery win, not the daily grind of the doubling penny.
But we have to internalize this truth. Real, lasting success requires, and I'm quoting here, a continuum of mundane, unsexy, unexciting, and sometimes difficult daily disciplines compounded over time. There just is no shortcut.
All right, now that we get the power of that long journey, let's talk about the fuel for it, our choices. The author is very clear on this. Everything in your life today is there because you first made a choice about it.
It really is the root of all results. Think about it. Every single choice you make, it starts a behavior. Repeat that behavior enough, and it becomes a habit.
And that habit alters your life's trajectory, for better or for worse.
And even choosing not to choose, that's still a choice. It's a choice to be passive, to let the currents take you wherever they're going. You make your choices, and then your choices make you.
So the real danger isn't the one big catastrophic mistake. It's not the elephant that bites you, as he says.
No, it's the mosquito effect.
Explain that.
It's the damage caused by all the frequent, small, seemingly inconsequential choices that you make unconsciously. Those are the ones that derail you.
It's like we're sleepwalking through our day.
Exactly. Nobody wakes up and says, my goal for the next 5 years is to become obese and go bankrupt. But they sleepwalk their way there. They inhale a soda without thinking. They lose 2 hours to mindless TV because they just didn't actively choose to do something better.
And those tiny, unexamined choices just pile up until one day you wake up and wonder how you got there. The compound effect was working against you the whole time.
And to stop that sleepwalking, you have to adopt this really revolutionary idea of owning 100% responsibility, the 1000 philosophy.
This is a tough one for a lot of people. It's so easy to fall into victim mode and blame things outside of yourself.
Oh, it's our default setting. Blame the traffic, blame the boss, blame the economy. But every time you place blame externally, you're literally giving away your power to change things.
He tells a story about a seminar he attended.
Yes, where the speaker wrote 1000 on a board. He explained, you have to be willing to give 100% effort to anything, a relationship, a job, with zero expectation of getting anything back.
When you take 100% responsibility for your own effort, it doesn't matter what the other person does. You're free.
It's liberating. If you're late for a meeting, you can blame traffic. Or, with the 1000 rule, you can say, I own this. I chose to leave at a time when I knew traffic was a risk. You take back control.
How did he apply this in his own life? He shared a really painful example.
He did. He lost over $330,000 in a business venture because a partner was, well, misbehaving. He could have spent years in litigation.
But he didn't.
He stopped. He realized that ultimately the loss was his own fault. He had chosen to ignore some pretty obvious red flags. He hadn't inspected what he was expecting. He admitted he'd been lazy in overseeing the finances.
Wow, that takes a lot of guts. But I can see how that would be empowering. By owning it, he chose to stop the bleeding and move on.
That's the psychological release. If you own your failure, you also own the power to create the next success. Taking 100% responsibility is what moves you from being reactive to being proactive.
And this idea of empowerment ties directly into the concept of luck. We tend to see luck as this random, magical thing.
But the compound effect argues that the kind of luck that leads to success is actually manufactured. It's a result of a series of conscious choices.
He gives a complete formula for it.
He does. It's not just opportunity meets preparation. It's more active than that. The formula is luck equals preparation plus attitude plus opportunity plus action.
Okay, let's break that down. Preparation is all the boring, unsexy, long-term work.
Right. It's consistently improving your skills, your knowledge, your resources. It's all the work you do when no one is watching, so that when a chance does appear, you're actually ready for it.
That attitude.
Attitude is crucial. It's your mindset. You have to be in a frame of mind where you're actively looking for fortuitous circumstances. If you're cynical and negative, you will literally filter out potential opportunities. You can't see what you're not looking for.
Opportunity is the event itself, and action is the final critical piece.
It's the separator. Opportunities come to everyone, but only the people who do something about it when it arrives actually capitalize on it. You have to make the choice to act.
So to make sure we're making these conscious choices and preparing ourselves for luck, we need what he calls the secret weapon, the scorecard. Basically, tracking.
And this is the first practical step anyone can take, because it forces immediate awareness. The principle is so simple. You cannot manage or improve what you do not measure.
If you want to improve your health, you track what you eat. If you want to fix your finances, you track every single penny.
The author's story about this is so powerful. He decided to carry a small notepad and write down every cent he spent for 30 days.
And what was the effect of just that one simple act?
It was instantaneous. He immediately became aware of dozens of small, automatic, wasteful decisions he was making every day.
It changed his behavior.
Yeah, powerfully. He said he found himself resisting buying things, not because he couldn't afford them, but because he didn't want the hassle of having to take out the notepad and write it down. The simple act of tracking created a new discipline.
And this kind of tracking reveals the true hidden cost of our small choices. The example of the $4 a day coffee habit is just mind-blowing.
It really puts things in perspective. If you assume a pretty standard 8% compound growth rate from investing,
which is a reasonable long-term market return,
then every dollar you spend today is effectively costing you $5 in 20 years. You lose all that potential growth.
So that $4 coffee 5 days a week is $20 a week. But over 20 years, the real cost when you factor in that lost investment potential is
a staggering $51,833.
So when you look at that $4 coffee, you should be asking, is this really worth $51,000 of my retirement?
It completely changes the internal math. And that level of awareness is what tracking gives you. It allows for what he calls course correction.
The unsung hero of success.
Absolutely. We look at top performers and see this huge gap, but the difference in their daily actions is often microscopic.
Like in professional golf, the difference between the number 1 player and the number 10 player is what, less than a single stroke?
Just 0.32 strokes per round on average, almost nothing. And yet, the number 1 golfer earns more than double the prize money, nearly $10 million versus $4.7 million.
So that tiny, almost invisible difference in daily performance yields an exponentially greater result in income.
It's all those millions of little things done consistently when no one's watching. A tiny improvement that leads to a 100% increase in reward.
And the single greatest multiplier in this whole equation is time. Which brings us to the cost of procrastination. The most important choice is simply to start now.
The retirement savings example is maybe the most powerful argument for this in the entire book.
Yeah.
You have 2 friends. Friend A starts saving $250 a month at age 23 and stops at 40.
So they invest for 17 years.
Right. Friend B waits until they're 40 and then saves the same $250 a month all the way to age 67. That's 27 years of investing.
So friend B actually invested more cash out of pocket, $27,000 more.
Correct. But because friend A had the magic of compounding working for those crucial early years, friend A retires with over $1 million.
And the late starter, friend B,
only has $285,000.
Wow. Nearly 4 times less money despite investing for 10 years longer. It's all about the time.
When you delay, you're not just losing time, you're losing your money's ability to make more money for you. The regret that friend B must feel it's just devastating.
But it's also never too late to start. You can still reap huge benefits. There's that Brian Tracy plan.
The 1,000% improvement plan. If you just improve by 0.1% each workday, which is nothing, that compounds to 26% growth in a year. You double your income every 3 years.
It all comes down to starting with tiny, non-threatening steps. Like the story of Beverly, who wanted to run a half marathon.
Yeah, she was significantly overweight, got winded just going upstairs. If you'd told her to go run 5 miles, she would have failed and quit.
So instead, the instruction was super simple.
Just walk a 1-mile loop 3 times in the next 2 weeks. That's it. It was so easy she couldn't say no. And that tiny, successful first step built her confidence and started the positive ripple.
And within 9 months, she was running 13.5 miles regularly.
And she'd lost over 40 pounds. Her cravings were gone. Her sales at work had doubled because she had more energy. It all started with one non-threatening choice.
She got hooked on the feeling of winning. And that's a habit, which is what we need to break down next. How do we lock in those winning behaviors for good?
Okay, habits. This is really the engine room of the compound effect. As Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. And modern psychology backs that up.
Something like 95% of what we do every day is the result of a learned automatic habit.
It's incredibly right. We're basically running on autopilot 95% of the time. So success really depends on making sure your autopilot is programmed with positive, productive habits.
Because if it's not, you're just automatically moving in the wrong direction.
Exactly. The analogy in the book is about a wise teacher and saplings versus a mighty oak tree.
I remember this one.
Small new habits are like little saplings. You can just pull them up with your fingers, no real effort. But old habits, the ones you've had for decades, they're like a mighty oak. Their roots are so deep and tangled, you couldn't even dream of pulling them up.
So the lesson is, the longer you wait to correct a bad habit, the exponentially harder it becomes.
And conversely, good habits become your secret weapon. They can even make up for a lack of, say, natural talent.
Like Larry Bird, he wasn't the most athletic guy on the court.
Not at all. But he led the Celtics to 3 championships because his habit was to practice 500 free throws every single morning. That relentless consistency just overpowered any physical limitations he had.
But we're all fighting against this built-in desire for an immediate reward, the instant gratification trap.
It's our primitive brain. It wants the payoff now. It doesn't care about long-term consequences. A bad habit, like eating junk food, it gives you that instant pleasure.
And there's no immediate negative feedback, the weight gain, the health problems, that's all delayed. So our brain just discounts the future pain.
This is why we have to be so conscious of those tiny adjustments. Remember the analogy of the airplane flying from LA to New York?
If it's pointed just 1% off course.
A tiny, imperceptible deviation at the start. But over that 3,000-mile journey, that 1% deviation means the plane ends up 150 miles away from its target. It lands in Albany or Delaware instead of New York City.
That's how small bad habits work. They seem harmless today, but they lead you to a completely different destination in life.
So to uproot those mighty oak habits, you need something stronger than just willpower. The author says willpower alone will always fail.
Because it runs out of fuel, you need why power.
Exactly. Willpower is like trying to stop a charging bear with a napkin. It's just not strong enough. Your choices and your discipline are only sustainable when they are connected to your deepest desires, your dreams, your why.
If the why isn't big enough, you'll quit the second it gets hard.
The plank analogy explains this perfectly. If I offered you $20 to walk across a narrow plank between two skyscrapers, you'd say no.
Of course. The risk is insane. The reward is tiny.
But what if your child was on the other building and it was on fire? You'd be across that plank in a second. You wouldn't even think about it.
The how crossing the plank is the same, but the why completely changed.
Your reason became big enough to overcome any obstacle. And to find that powerful why, you have to connect your motivation to your core values, your personal compass.
So you have to define what matters most to you. For the author, it was things like growth, excellence, and impact.
Right. And once you have this defined, decision-making becomes simple. If a choice doesn't align with your core values, you just don't do it. It eliminates all the indecisions.
He also talks about a more primal source of motivation to find your fight.
Yeah, this is interesting. It's about identifying an enemy. It could be hating disease or hating mediocrity or, surprisingly, using the desire to prove naysayers wrong as fuel.
It seems a little negative using anger or resentment.
It can be, but the argument is that the initial source of the motivation doesn't really matter as long as it's, legal and moral and it gets you into massive action.
Like the examples of Pete Carroll, the football coach, or Anthony Hopkins.
Exactly. Hopkins used the anger he felt from being labeled a problem child to fuel his entire acting career. That initial spark of defiance gave him the emotional juice he needed for decades of hard work.
Okay, so once you have that why power, you need a strategy. The book gives 5 game changers for eliminating bad habits.
Number 1 is to identify your triggers. The who, what, where, and when behind every bad habit. Is it stress? Boredom? Is it a certain time of day? You have to know the trigger to diffuse it.
Number 2, clean house. This is a physical action.
It is. Get rid of the enablers. If you drink too much, the alcohol has to go. If you watch too much TV, cancel the cable. You have to change your environment so that doing the right thing is easy and doing the wrong thing is hard.
3 is swap it. Don't just eliminate, replace.
Crucial. You replace the harmful habit with a healthier one that satisfies the same urge. Crave sugar? Swap a pint of ice cream for a couple of small dark chocolates. Eat a crunch. Swap chips for carrots.
Number 4 is ease in.
For some deep-rooted habits, going cold turkey is just too much of a shock. So you wean yourself off gradually. Like the coffee example. Go to half calf, then full decaf, then switch to tea.
And number 5 is the opposite. Jump in.
Right. For some people and some habits, a radical, abrupt change is the only way. It shocks the system into a new normal. The dread of the change is often worse than the actual change itself.
And as a kind of maintenance, he suggests doing a periodic vice check.
Yeah, every so often, just fast from one of your vices, coffee, wine, whatever, for 30 days. It's not about punishment. It's about making sure that you are still in control and that the habit hasn't become your master.
Okay, that's how you eliminate bad habits. What about installing good ones?
There are 6 techniques for that. And you have to remember, it takes a lot of repetition, maybe 300 instances of positive reinforcement to really lock a new habit in.
The first one is to set yourself up to succeed.
Make the good habit as convenient as possible. If you want to go to the gym, pick one that's on your way to work. Lay your clothes out the night before. Engineer your environment for success.
2 is think addition, not subtraction.
Focus on what you can do, not what you have to give up. Instead of saying, I can't eat burgers, say, I'm going to add a huge salad to every meal. You crowd out the bad stuff with the good.
3, go for a PDA, a public display of accountability.
Tell people what you're doing. Post it on social media. Announce it to your family. When you know other people are watching, you're way less likely to quit.
4 is find a success buddy.
Partner up with someone for structured accountability. A weekly check-in call where you review your wins, your losses, and you get honest feedback.
5, competition and camaraderie.
Use friendly contests, a 90-day fitness challenge or a sales competition at work. The rivalry and the sense of community can dramatically boost your consistency, especially in those tough early stages.
And finally, number 6 is celebrate.
You have to reward yourself. The big payoffs are way down the road, so you need to acknowledge the small daily wins with small frequent rewards. It reinforces the new behavior and keeps you from sliding back.
That is a complete system. So with that foundation in place, let's talk about how all these consistent habits create that unstoppable force, momentum.
Right, Chapter 4. This is where we meet Big Mo, or momentum. And it really is the most powerful force in success. It's where the slow, grinding progress suddenly turns into exponential, almost effortless results.
It's basically Newton's first law of motion applied to your life. An object at rest stays at rest, and an object in motion stays in motion.
And we've seen how hard it is to get started, to overcome that initial inertia. The merry-go-round analogy is perfect for this.
Trying to get one of those heavy things moving from a dead stop is brutal.
It's agonizing. You're pushing, straining, and it's barely moving. It feels just like the first 20 days of that magic penny. You're putting in huge effort for almost no visible result.
But once you get it spinning, Big Mo takes over.
And then you just need a tiny, effortless push every now and then to keep it going at full speed. That massive initial effort created a self-sustaining cycle.
The rocket ship analogy takes it even further.
It does. A rocket uses something like 90% of its fuel in the first few minutes, just to break free from Earth's gravity and inertia.
But once it's in orbit,
The effort required to keep it moving is tiny in comparison, but the results, traveling thousands of miles an hour, are incredible. Our old habits are like gravity. It takes a huge, disciplined burst of energy to break free from them.
so the path to getting Big Mo isn't a single event. It's a sequence. It's the result of everything we've talked about so far.
Exactly. New choices leading to new behaviors, which become habits, which you build into routines, and you stay consistent over time. Momentum is the reward for all that discipline.
And you see this with every successful person. Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian of all time.
His dominance wasn't just raw talent. It was the result of building absolute consistency into his routines for 12 straight years. He almost never missed a single practice, not even on Christmas Day.
That boring consistency built this incredible momentum that allowed him to peak at exactly the right moments for over a decade.
And it works in business, too. Look at the Apple iPod. It was not an overnight hit. It actually had negative growth in its first year.
Most companies would have pulled the plug.
But they stayed consistent. They stuck with their commitment to quality and design, and 4 years later, momentum kicked in, and they just dominated the market. They endured the lag period.
So the key to keeping momentum once you have it is routine power.
Yes. Creating predictable, fail-safe routines is how you get predictable, fail-safe results. It takes the painful decision-making out of your day.
It's why military boot camp focuses on things like making your bed perfectly. It's not about the bed.
It's about building foundational routines that ensure you can perform under pressure. Routines make success automatic.
And professional athletes live by this. Jack and Nicklaus had a pre-shot routine that was timed to the second. It never varied. It guaranteed his mental state was consistent for every single swing.
And when you look at epic collapses, like Greg Norman at the Masters, you often see a breakdown in routine. His got faster and faster as the pressure mounted, which killed his rhythm.
So to create that predictable success, we need to control the bookends of our day, the start and the end.
Right. The middle of the day can be chaotic and unpredictable, but you can almost always control your first hour and your last hour.
The author's morning routine is a great model. It starts before he even gets out of bed.
Yep. Thinking about what he's grateful for, sending a positive intention to someone, and then setting his 3 most valuable priorities for the day.
Then he gets up and does some stretching, reads something positive for 30 minutes, and then, this is key, he does 90 minutes of focused, deep work on his most important project before he ever checks his email.
He front-loads his day with wins. That creates immediate positive momentum.
And the evening routine is just as important for closing out the day strong.
It is. He cashes out, reviews his day against his plan, logs any new ideas in a journal, and then reads 10 pages of something inspirational before sleep.
So you're setting your subconscious up for success overnight. And these daily routines, they create a rhythm.
A weekly rhythm, a monthly rhythm. And that rhythm is what invites Big Mo to come and stay. The locomotive analogy is perfect for this.
A train at a standstill can be stopped by a tiny 1-inch block on the track.
Complete stop. But once that train is rolling, once it has rhythm and consistent motion, it has enough momentum to smash through a 5-foot-thick concrete wall.
It's the power of sustained, predictable force. But he warns that the rhythm has to be sustainable.
Yes. A lot of people fail because they start too aggressively. They go from 0 exercise to 2 hours a day, 7 days a week. They burn out.
You have to find a pace you can stick with for 50 years, not just 5 weeks. And that leads to the ultimate discipline, the power of consistency.
Nothing kills Big Mo faster than inconsistency. The stop-start motion is a momentum killer.
The final analogy for this is the pump well.
Ah, yes. When you first start pumping an old-fashioned well, you have to put in massive energy just to get a few pathetic drops of water.
And that's where most people quit, right before the water starts to flow.
But if you persist, the water starts flowing steadily. Momentum is achieved. And now, pumping is easy. But if you stop for too long, the water level drops all the way back down.
And you're back at square one. You have to go through that whole agonizing, high-effort pumping process all over again.
Inconsistency doesn't just cost you the time you lost, it costs you all the momentum you built. You have to be the tortoise. Slow, steady, and relentless.
So we've covered the whole system. Massive success starts with those small, smart choices. They're built into habits through discipline. And that consistency creates the unstoppable force of Big Mo. But let's end with a provocative thought on how to accelerate this even further. How to become what he calls the exception.
This is a great final concept. It's the principle of multiplying results by doing just a little bit extra. Think about weightlifting. When you're lifting and you hit the point where you feel like you can't do another rep, that's the wall.
But the real growth happens in the reps you do after you hit that wall.
Exactly. Those last few reps aren't just additive. They multiply your results because you're pushing past your perceived limits. We saw this with the magic penny, too.
It's a multiplier example.
If you had just doubled the penny 1 extra time per week, only 4 extra days of effort over the month, the final result wasn't $10 million. It was $171 million.
16 times the result from a tiny bit of extra effort.
So the challenge for you, for everyone listening, is to find those multiplier opportunities in your own life. Identify 3 areas where you can push a little harder, prepare a little better, deliver a little more than what's expected.
Finding the line of expectation and then just deliberately stepping over it.
Simple things, like paying a supplier a few days early with a handwritten thank you note, or personally delivering a bonus check to an employee's home. These things don't cost more money, but they create these wow moments.
They create immeasurable goodwill and surprise.
And those moments accelerate your growth exponentially. Because being better than expected becomes part of your reputation. It becomes who you are. And that multiplies your success many, many times over.
A powerful place to end. The idea that once you've mastered consistency, you can start looking for places to add that little bit extra to create extraordinary results.
Thank you for watching, Olma. Please like here, subscribe, follow up in next topic. All right, let's come back to continue the compound effect. We're diving into what is, well, arguably the most crucial phase of this whole deep dive on building sustainable, explosive success.
It really is. We spent a lot of time laying the groundwork, looking at the power of those small, smart choices made consistently.
The habits, the momentum.
Big Mo.
Big Mo.
Exactly. Building Big Mo. And that was all about the internal operating system, kind of an overhaul. And if you haven't done that work, honestly, the rest of this conversation isn't really going to stick.
That's a great point. We've done that heavy lifting of self-governance, but now our mission is to look outward. We need to see where the world is, either consciously or unconsciously, fighting against all these new habits we've built. So we're really digging into the later stages of this framework. We're focusing on the external forces that are constantly influencing us, our inputs, the people around us, our environment.
And then the pivot.
And then the pivot to the absolute key, how to actually accelerate those results, how to push past that wall where, let's be honest, most people just quit.
They do.
So this whole session is about maximizing the momentum you've already built and turning that consistency into, well, true exponential achievement.
And that second half you mentioned, managing influences and accelerating, that is precisely where most people get derailed, even people with fantastic habits.
Really? Even if they're doing everything right internally.
Oh, absolutely. They're so diligent. They're tracking their calories, they're saving their money, but they completely ignore these subtle, constant forces that are working against them. And so their trajectory, it just slowly, silently starts to veer off course.
That idea is so deeply unsettling. Because the shift is so small, at first, you probably wouldn't even realize you're in danger until it's way too late.
It is the definition of insidious. Just think about that classic kind of terrifying analogy of the airplane.
Right, flying from LA to New York.
Exactly. The flight plan is perfect, it's precise, but if that plane takes off and the nose is pointed just 1% off course, which is, a nearly invisible, tiny adjustment,
You'd never notice it on the dashboard.
you'd never notice. Over the first 50 miles, it doesn't matter much, but you compound that tiny error over a coast-to-coast flight.
Yeah.
And that plane lands about 150 miles off target. So instead of New York City, you're suddenly in Albany, New York, or maybe even down in Dover, Delaware.
Wow.
And external influences act exactly like that 1% course correction. They just nudge you constantly, subtly, without any immediate visible feedback, either toward or away from where you want to go. So we just have to learn to govern those nudges before we wake up 150 miles from our destination.
Okay, let's unpack this whole influence problem because it sounds like it requires a very active defense. We're moving into Chapter 5, which breaks it all down into 3 main types of influences. Things that need not just our awareness, but active daily management.
That's the key, daily management.
So it's input, associations, and environment. Let's start with the most immediate one, the one that is arguably the easiest to control, what we feed our minds, our input.
Input is absolutely critical, and the source material drives home a really fascinating point here. We have to actively fight our own biology to manage it.
Our own biology, how so?
Well, the human brain, thanks to millennia of evolution focused on survival, is fundamentally programmed with what the book calls a lack and attack agenda.
Lack and attack?
Yeah. It's designed to seek out potential threats. So it is literally wired to light up at negative news robberies, political fights, financial crises, a hurricane that's 1,000 miles away.
So it's not a moral failure that we're drawn to negativity. It's actually a biological imperative that the modern world has learned to exploit.
Precisely. We have this natural hardwired tendency to consume negativity because our minds are just constantly looking for danger signals. And if we don't actively guard the gate to our mind, we will be flooded. I mean, literally flooded with worry, fear, anxiety, and cynicism.
And that's the rubbernecking phenomenon on the highway, right?
Yeah. Exactly. We slow down for the wreck, for the chaos, because our brain is screaming, danger, analyze the threat. We almost never slow down to admire a beautiful sunset.
And the media masters, as you said, they know this nature of ours better than we know ourselves. They leverage the sensational, the shocking, the bleak, because it absolutely guarantees our attention.
And that is the danger. That constant, unrelenting stream of negative input, the whole if it bleeds, it leads mentality, it gives us a very, very perverted view of the world.
How so?
Because the media focuses on, the heinous, the scandalous, the absolute bleakest 1% of what's happening. So our minds start to believe that this warped, worst-case reality is actually the norm. We lose all perspective on the overwhelmingly positive, safe, and productive things happening all over the globe every single day.
This leads us right to the core of visual in the book, the dirty water analogy. I think we need to spend some real time here because this really defines our default mindset.
Yeah, it's a powerful one. Imagine your mind is just an empty glass, totally clean, ready to be filled. Now, all that sensational news, the gossip, the angry talk show rants, the cynical political stuff on social media, all of that is dirty water being poured into your glass. Constantly. So if your glass is full of that dirty, dark, dismal water, then every single expectation you set, every creative solution you try to come up with, every decision you make is filtered through that muddy mesh.
Through worry and cynicism and fear.
Exactly. You get garbage in, garbage out. And it's not because you aren't trying hard, but because the input itself is corrupting the entire process.
So the goal isn't just to stop the dirty water from coming in. It's to continuously flush the glass with clean water.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like in practice? Especially, say, in the first hour of your day?
Well, it requires a pretty radical shift in your media diet and, crucially, in your morning routine. Clean water is positive, inspirational, supportive input.
Like what?
Stories of people overcoming obstacles, successful strategies, educational material, uplifting narratives. Practically, this means you dedicate your first hour not to scrolling social media or turning on the morning news.
Which is what most people do.
It's the default. Instead, you intentionally consume material that elevates your mood and expands your mind. You limit social media to a specific block of time later in the day. You refuse to listen to news radio on your commute, and you actively avoid those sensational tabloid headlines at the grocery store.
It sounds like it requires sustained, deliberate vigilance.
It does, because you're fighting two things at once. external forces designed to capture your attention and internal forces in your own brain that are designed to respond to threat.
The statistic on TV consumption alone is just a powerful indictment of modern distraction. The source says Americans aged 12 and older spend an average of 4.7 hours a day watching TV.
4.7 hours a day, that's 33 hours a week.
Wow.
And if you calculate that over a year, it's the equivalent of spending 2 solid months, 60 days of every single year just watching TV.
Just think about that opportunity cost.
It's massive. If people wonder why they feel stuck, why they can't seem to get ahead, or why they lack the specialized knowledge to move up in their careers, they have to look at that time sink. That huge chunk of time is essentially neutralizing any positive small actions they might be attempting to compound.
And this brings us right to the crucial proactive solution, the strategy that turns that lost time into accelerated achievement. Enrollment in Drive Time U.
This is one of the most brilliant compounding strategies there is because it leverages unavoidable time. You're already in the car.
Right.
The average American drives about 12,000 miles a year. That works out to roughly 300 hours of potential learning time.
300 hours.
So if you just substitute the news radio, the pop music, the gossip shows, and you replace it with instructional material audiobooks for your career, deep dive educational podcasts, specialized lectures, you can gain the knowledge equivalent of 2 advanced college semesters annually.
2 college semesters a year, just from your commute.
Just from reclaiming time that was previously wasted listening to the traffic report, it's a total game changer. Imagine graduating with a PhD in your field or mastering a brand new skill just from leveraging those 300 hours.
It's the substitution that's key.
That's it. You don't have to find new time. You just repurpose existing, unavoidable time. You're proactively filling that empty glass with knowledge that compounds day after day, year after year. And that guarantees you will separate yourself from the herd of people who choose to consume dirty water during those exact same 300 hours.
So if we are what we consume with our minds, then we're also heavily influenced by who we consume our time with, which leads us right to the power of our reference group, our associations. The source material makes this incredible claim that the people closest to us determine as much as 95% of our success or failure in life. I mean, that's a staggering, almost frightening level of influence.
It is, and it's based on that core teaching from Jim Rohn, which states that we become the combined average of the 5 people we spend most time with.
And that's not just income, right? It's everything.
It's everything. It's your health, your income, your attitudes, your emotional stability. If your 5 closest friends are, habitually broke, consistently cynical about opportunity, and lead sedentary, unhealthy lifestyles, well, you are being mathematically nudged toward that average, whether you want to be or not.
But the resistance to this idea is so powerful because it forces you to look critically at the people you love.
Yeah.
How can this influence be so powerful if we consciously choose, hey, I'm going to be different?
Because the influence is so subtle. It's not a sudden push off a cliff. It's that inner tube analogy again.
Right. You're in the ocean.
Yeah, you feel like you're just floating perfectly in place. You're committed to your goal. But the gentle current, which is the constant collective pace of your reference group, is pushing you. And before you know it, you look up and you realize you've drifted a half mile down the shore.
Can you give a practical example of that?
Sure. If your friend group routinely orders greasy, high-calorie appetizers and multiple cocktails, and they're always complaining about having to work out, you gradually, slowly assimilate those habits and attitudes. You will actually start to feel guilty if you don't participate in their destructive pace. Your momentum just naturally matches their collective momentum.
So, to maintain our own forward trajectory, we need to apply the same kind of rigor that we use for our habits, but to strategically manage our associations. The book breaks this down into 3 necessary categories.
Absolutely. The first one is tough. It's dissociations.
Oof.
Yeah. These are the people who actively refuse to grow. They're perpetually negative, and they just drag you down with their complaints and cynicism. And this is difficult because it often involves family members or very old friends.
When you start to change, they notice.
They fight you tooth and nail.
No.
Because your success, your positive change, it holds a really painful mirror up to their own poor choices and their own stagnation.
Okay, but this brings up a huge ethical and emotional challenge. I mean, are we really supposed to just cut off a lifelong friend or minimize contact with a family member just because they aren't successful? How do you balance that personal ambition with loyalty and compassion?
That is a crucial question. And the source material isn't advocating for callousness. It's advocating for self-preservation of your core commitments.
So it's a defensive move.
It is. If you have a friend who is actively trying to pull you back into bad habits, say drinking too much or constantly gossiping, that relationship is a direct threat to your compound trajectory. Loyalty should be reserved for those who support the best version of you.
So it's not always about cutting them off completely.
Often, no. It means setting very hard boundaries. You make the hard choice to put up some distance or to redefine the relationship if they consistently erode your quality of life. At the end of the day, your number one loyalty has to be to the person you are becoming.
I appreciate that clarification. It's really about protecting the investment you've made in yourself. Okay, so next up we have limited associations.
This is the critical distinction between, as the book calls it, the 3-minute friend and the 3-day friend.
3-minute versus 3-day.
Yeah. There are people you enjoy, people who are kind, but whose overall attitude or lifestyle might be, well, toxic to your long-term goals. So you have to consciously decide how much influence you can afford to tolerate from them.
Afford. That's an interesting word.
Look, it is. Your neighbor might be excellent for a quick 3-minute chat about the weather, but 3 hours in their company, absorbing their persistent negativity about their job or their finances, that might be too much exposure. You have to proactively manage the frequency and the duration of these relationships to protect your own mindset.
And finally, the most important category for actually accelerating your success. Expanded associations.
This is where you go on offense. It means actively and aggressively seeking out and spending more time with people who already embody the success you desire.
So you're intentionally trying to raise your average.
You're rigging the game in your favor. If you want better financial results, you have to go to the organizations, the clubs, the networking groups where financially successful, forward-thinking people gather. Their behaviors, their attitudes toward risk, their conversation topics, their pace of action, all of that will inevitably begin to assimilate into your routine. This is influence not just being managed, it's influence actively working for you, pushing your average up.
The source also gives some really practical, scalable ways to leverage mentorship, which ties into this idea of expanded associations, even if you can't get a CEO on the phone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can gain what are essentially unlimited mentors through books, audio programs, and yes, educational deep dives like this one. The author, Darren Hardy, talks about spending thousands of hours with his mentor, Jim Rohn, primarily just by listening to his teachings in the car. That's Drive Time You in action again. You have an unlimited bounty of the world's greatest wisdom, and it's accessible for the price of an audiobook subscription. You just replace passive consumption with active learning, and you let those voices of success redefine your average.
And beyond that sort of passive mentorship, there's the concept of external accountability. The peak performance partner and the personal board of advisors. How do these differ from just having, a supportive spouse or a good friend?
A peak performance partner is way more formalized and rigorous than just a venting session. This is someone who is equally committed to growth. They have to be trusted, bold, and capable of being brutally honest without any reservation.
There's a structure to it.
A rigid structure. You schedule a mandatory weekly accountability call, say 30 minutes, sharp, where you rigorously trade your wins from the past week, your losses, your planned fixes for the next week, and your new aha moments. This partner is your mirror. They call you on your BS, and they also celebrate your small victories.
It's that external, objective accountability.
Yes, and it keeps Big Mo going, even when your internal motivation starts to waver. I mean, think about it. Even Olympic athletes and world-class CEOs hire coaches. You are never too good or too successful for this level of honest feedback.
And the personal board of advisors takes that high-level input even further.
It does. This is a hand-selected group, maybe a dozen people, chosen specifically for their expertise in different areas. You might have one for creative thinking, another for financial acumen, another for character, another for industry knowledge.
And you're not bothering them all the time.
No, the key is to just reach out weekly to one or two of them. You're not asking for huge chunks of their time, just soliciting highly specific ideas or feedback on a current challenge. And the profound rule here, the one that defines the quality of the counsel you get, is from Jim Rohn again. Never ask advice of someone with whom you wouldn't want to trade places.
Ooh, that's a powerful filter.
It's the ultimate filter. If you wouldn't swap lives with them, don't take their advice on that topic. This just cuts out all the cynical, unqualified, or stagnant input, and it ensures the quality of your counsel matches the quality of your ambition.
Okay, so with our input guarded and our associations managed, we now shift the focus to our immediate surroundings. And this isn't just about cleaning your house, which is important,
Yeah.
but about clearing what the book calls the psychic clutter that silently drains our energy.
The environment, both physical and otherwise, must operate as a dream expander. The environment we live in sets a physical and a psychological standard for what we believe is possible. The story of the author driving to Lozeron and seeing those magnificent cliffside homes, that's not about materialism, it's about exposure. That environment fueled his ambition, and it expanded his dreams way beyond the limited demographic he had previously accepted as his own.
The metaphor of the sapling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You plant a mighty oak sapling in a small pot, and you limit its growth. You need physical and psychological space that necessitates becoming a mighty oak.
I think we all intellectually get that our physical surroundings matter, but you mentioned the psychic clutter is often more draining than the physical mess. What exactly is psychic clutter?
Psychic clutter is every single incomplete piece of your life that you've just pushed to the side. It's that stack of unpaid bills on the counter, the broken appliance you haven't fixed yet, the 5 emails you promised to send last week.
The unkept promises?
Unkept promises to yourself or to others, the debt you keep ignoring. Each one of these incomplete agreements or unfulfilled tasks exerts a constant draining force. They just sit in the back of your mind, sucking up psychological energy.
So you have to clear it out.
You have to clear this psychic clutter to free up the energy of accomplishment and allow momentum to actually flow. If you look around your environment and you see broken things, it reinforces a subconscious message that you live in a broken environment.
That's a powerful internal shift. To realize that the broken doorknob isn't just an inconvenience, it's a mental tax. And this concept leads directly to one of the most uncompromising philosophical takeaways in the entire source.
Yeah.
The standard of tolerance.
This is the critical, non-negotiable philosophy. You get in life what you tolerate, period. The universe isn't judging you. It is simply aligning itself with the standards you project.
Wow.
If you tolerate being consistently late, if you tolerate being disorganized, if you tolerate being disrespected by coworkers, being underpaid, or being overweight and sick, those conditions will persist, even if you're making small positive choices somewhere else.
So if someone is being consistently disrespected at work or their partner is chronically late, they are essentially signaling to the universe, this is acceptable behavior.
Absolutely. Life organizes itself around the standards you set for yourself. We have profound control over how people treat us and the quality of our immediate space, but only by proactively implementing and protecting our boundaries.
And how do you do that? How do you move from just recognizing you're tolerating something to actually enforcing a higher standard?
It starts with the absolute conviction that you are worthy of better. You simply stop accepting chaos. You stop accepting marginal results. If you want big, more real, powerful momentum to move in, your entire environment must be welcoming and supportive of you becoming world-class. If you tolerate chaos, you will live in chaos. If you demand excellence, excellence will appear.
Okay, we've established consistency, we've built momentum, we've cleared the environment, we've surrounded ourselves with champions, we've done the long, slow work of compounding now. How do we hit the accelerator and truly multiply those results? This chapter is all about pushing through the point where most people just give up the wall.
The wall is inevitable. It comes up in any major endeavor. It's that moment, whether you're biking up the tortuously steep slopes of Mount Soledad or pushing through the final hour of a complex project.
Or a tough negotiation.
It's when the suffering becomes acute. And your mind, which is programmed for comfort and survival, starts inventing all these convenient, perfectly rational alibis for why you should quit. Your true inner character is fully revealed in that single moment of choice.
The Mount Soledad analogy is so brutal because we all recognize that moment. The mind starts telling you excuses. I'll start again tomorrow. I've done enough for today. This isn't really that important.
Every single high performer faces the psychological reckoning. The difference between the champion and the average competitor is defined entirely by what they do after they hit the wall. And the perfect illustration of this is the story of Des Linden in the 2018 Boston Marathon.
Oh, that race was legendary for its brutality. I mean, freezing rain, 35-mile-per-hour winds, the coldest temperature the race had seen in 30 years. It was misery embodied.
It was, and Linden was running. She felt miserable. Her body was screaming at her, and she was genuinely thinking about dropping out of the race. She pulls up alongside her struggling teammate, Shalane Flanagan, and she tells her, "Let me know if you need anything before I quit."
Wow.
And when Flanagan needed a quick bathroom break, Des slowed down to help her catch back up to the lead pack.
So she was on the verge of quitting, but she kept going for the sole purpose of helping a struggling teammate.
Exactly. That single act of external focus, Forgetting her own physical misery and her own pain to help someone else, it acted like a circuit breaker. It instantly reignited her own drive. She stepped outside of her mental prison of suffering.
And she realized something.
She realized the conditions were so universally awful that they were, in her words, comical. When she got back to the lead pack, she looked around and realized she was still in contention. So she pushed, accelerating past her internal wall, and she passed Mamitu Daska at mile 21.
And won the whole thing.
Became the first American woman to win in 33 years. And her insight really summarizes this entire chapter. It's what you do after you hit it that really matters.
The application of this concept is essentially the power of extra effort, which connects perfectly to the coaching philosophy of Lou Holtz.
Holtz understood a very deep truth. At the elite level, every single player gives their all. Talent is matched. What separated his winning teams was their capacity for the critical extra effort.
He would show the tapes of it.
Yeah, he would show his team highlight reels of second efforts. The defensive back who runs all the way across the field for an extra block after the play seemed over. The lineman who pushes for one extra second after the whistle. That single additional step, that ability to push past the normal breaking point, when you compound that across a team and across a season, becomes the exponential difference between failure and a championship. It's the ability to fight fatigue when the other side is accepting it.
And Muhammad Ali weaponized this exact same principle against George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle. It was a strategic application of waiting for your opponent to hit the wall first.
Ali's famous rope-a-dope strategy was a brilliant psychological assault. It was entirely predicated on exploiting Foreman's lack of staying power.
He knew he couldn't outpunch him.
No way. He knew if he could just endure hundreds of punches by leaning on the ropes, covering up, taking the blows, Foreman, who was a brute force puncher, would just exhaust himself trying to maintain that intensity.
And he did.
By the 8th round, Foreman was at his wall. He was completely spent, physically and mentally. And Ali, having pushed past his own threshold of pain first, was ready to drop him. When the situation is difficult, when you hit that wall, that is the very moment you separate yourself from 99% of the herd. The goal, as Jim Rohn taught, isn't to wish it were easier, but to wish you were better.
So, if that psychological breakthrough defines the moment of acceleration, what is the actual mathematical advantage of doing just a little bit more? We need to understand the exponential payoff of pushing beyond just the necessary minimum.
The advantage is not additive. It is absolutely exponential. Consider the cheating principle that Arnold Schwarzenegger made famous in weight training.
Right, the extra reps.
Exactly. If your routine calls for 12 repetitions, those first 12 reps just get you ready. They maintain your current status. The real growth, the muscle breakdown and rebuilding that causes exponential results happens in the extra 3 to 5 reps you force out after you've hit your maximum, after your mind is screaming at you to stop. You are multiplying your results because you push through the wall and into the growth zone.
It's the difference between doing enough to maintain and doing enough to actually grow. And the math of compounding here should shock us. Let's go back to the magic penny.
Yeah, let's look at the numbers again, because this is where the theory becomes visceral. Remember the magic penny from the foundational chapters, the one that doubled in value every day for 31 days.
Yeah, it ended up at around $10.7 million.
Right, that was the payoff of just simple consistency over time. Now we apply the acceleration principle.
So instead of simple consistency, we apply extra effort.
Yes. Consider this scenario. If that penny was doubled only one extra time per week during that 31-day period, just 4 small bursts of additional effort over the course of a month, the result doesn't just bump up to 11 million.
It's more than that.
The result jumps from $10,737,418.24 to a shocking $171,798,691.84.
Wow. Get out of here.
That is a difference of over $161 million, yielded by just 4 extra painful days of work. A tiny increase in effort yields an astronomical exponential payoff. That is the actual mechanism of the multiplier effect.
The $161 million difference is the perfect illustration of why this acceleration phase is so vital. It's not just about persistence, it's about strategic over-delivery. So the goal becomes consistently beating expectations and creating these wow moments.
Precisely. You have to look for opportunities to dramatically exceed the standard. Think of Oprah Winfrey's iconic season opener. She was expected to give one winner a car, which is already a very generous gift.
Right, you get a car.
Instead, she gave every single member of the audience a new Pontiac G6. By exceeding that expectation so dramatically, she didn't just generate a TV segment, She created a cultural, indelible moment. The unexpectedness multiplied the goodwill and the attention exponentially, far beyond the actual cost of the cars themselves.
And the principle isn't limited to these grand televised gestures. The
Mhm.
book is a great example of applying this kind of financial goodwill in just routine, low-level business practices.
Yeah, the entrepreneur Mark Sparks. He recognized that most businesses pay their vendors and suppliers on the date they committed to. That's the expected action.
Mm-hmm.
Sparks paid his vendors a few days in advance of the commitment date. He understood that it was the same exact amount of money, but the surprise and the goodwill it bought was immeasurable. That act signaled trustworthiness and respect, and it created a loyalty that money alone could never buy.
It's the same principle in customer service.
Exactly. Nordstrom is a legendary for exceeding expectations. Taking back an item someone bought a year ago without a receipt, for instance. That single act builds extraordinary, compounded trust and creates a reputation for excellence that multiplies their results many times over in the marketplace.
You can even apply this to deeply personal relationships and get what the source calls an exponential emotional payoff. The proposal story is a perfect example of this.
Right. When proposing, the author knew that asking the father-in-law for permission was the expected, required action, but he went above and beyond.
He learned Portuguese.
He prepared his speech in Portuguese, the father-in-law's native language, to honor his heritage and make him comfortable. And then he called all 5 of the prospective wife's brothers to ask for their blessing as well.
That's a lot of extra effort.
A lot, but that seemingly minor extra effort made the moment unique, deeply honoring, and it purchased emotional goodwill that paid off exponentially in their relationship and in their integration into the family. You have to look for where you can go for wow.
So how do we operationalize this multiplication principle? How do we build this calculated audacity into our daily actions to really stand out in a saturated world?
We have to embrace the contrarian advantage. Doing what is popular is safe, but it's average. The most popular items, McDonald's, Budweiser, the default choice, they deliver common expected results. If you want extraordinary results, you have to zag when everyone else zigs. You need to be different, unexpected, and indelible to break through the clutter and make an impression.
The example of sending Thanksgiving cards instead of Christmas cards is so simple, but it's so effective.
It's brilliant because it uses the exact same amount of effort, but it completely maximizes the impact. Everyone sends Christmas cards, they just arrive in a big pile, they lose their emotional impact.
Right.
A Thanksgiving card handwritten with personal sentiments of genuine gratitude stands out entirely on its own. It creates a far greater lasting impression. The unexpected timing multiplies the result of the gesture.
We see this played out on a global scale with figures like Lady Gaga. Her entire career is built on calculated evolution and doing the over-the-top from, the meat dress to all her conceptual performances.
She constantly redefines the norm. She's famous for that outlandish persona, but then her vulnerability and her stripped-down performance in A Star is Born was equally unexpected. And it just showed her consistent, deeply rooted artistry. Her actions, whether they're shocking or intimate, always separate her from the pack and force people to pay attention to everything she does. That intentional unexpectedness is the multiplier.
And the real estate agent example demonstrates how a single, physical, unexpected action can break through the noise of competing professionals.
It's about leveraging physical presence when everyone else is just relying on digital clutter. When other agents were just calling on expired listings, one savvy agent drove to the owner's doorstep and hand-delivered a SOLD sign.
That's bold.
He placed it prominently and said, "You'll need this if you hire me to take over this listing." That simple, immediate, audacious action exponentially increased his chance of getting the listing. It separated him immediately from every other agent who was just making the expected phone call.
And this highlights the danger of relying on just adequate effort, like the story of the candidate who lost his dream job because he refused to fly across the country for an interview.
He was perfectly qualified, but he failed to go all in. He thought the video conference was enough because it was convenient. He was told by his mentor to fly out, show up in person, and launch what he called a shock and awe, campaign research the decision-maker's interests, send tailored gifts and books, attack from every possible front. But he settled for the expected, he failed to make an indelible impression, and he lost the job.
So the lesson is,
when you want something badly, you cannot settle for adequate effort. You have to be aggressive, do the unexpected, and push past what is considered normal effort in that field.
and the final example is a fascinating lesson in finding leverage when you're facing a political roadblock. going over a congressman's head to appeal to his wife.
This is just a masterclass in lateral, unexpected thinking. The congressman was resisting a piece of legislation for purely political reasons, and he created this immovable wall.
Right.
So instead of continuing these futile appeals to him, the proponents went to his wife after a church service. And they appealed not to her political beliefs, but to her sense of community. They explained that the legislation would build an after-school facility in an impoverished neighborhood.
So they changed the frame completely.
Completely. By appealing to a higher, more unexpected authority and a noble cause that just bypassed the political mechanism, the legislation was signed quickly. They found the true point of leverage.
That is a profound idea. That acceleration often comes not from pushing harder on the existing obstacle, but by moving completely around it and hitting an unexpected exposed flank.
Exactly. The final challenge here is to adopt this mindset permanently. Look for the multiplier opportunities in all areas of your life. Go a little further, push a little harder, last a little longer, deliver a little more. It takes very little extra to be extraordinary. But the compounded payoff, as the magic penny showed us, is massive and life-altering.
So we've journeyed through the core mechanics of success here. We started with that foundation of choices and habits. We built powerful Big Mo, protected our internal fortress from negative influences, and just now learned how to push through the wall to multiply our results exponentially.
And the ultimate synthesis is that success is entirely self-generated. It all comes back to consistency and small, smart actions. But understanding those external factors, the corrosive inputs, the dragging associations, the draining environment, that's what enables us to sustain that momentum and push past the point where 90% of people just quit.
And this whole journey leads us to the grand question, the necessary moment of reflection posed by the source material. We have to look back honestly at our own trajectory.
Right. The question is, look back on your life 5 years ago. Are you now where you thought you'd be 5 years later? Have you kicked the bad habits you had vowed to kick? Do you have the cushy income, the enviable lifestyle you expected?
Oof. That question cuts through all the excuses, and it forces immediate and probably painful self-assessment and accountability. If the answer is no, then the last 5 years have been compounded in the wrong direction.
And the most effective motivation for accelerating forward is often found in helping others. The philosophy is clear. Success is not something you pursue. Success is something you attract by the person you become. So the fastest way to gain success for yourself is to dedicate yourself to helping someone else obtain it. When you infuse positive, hopeful, and inspired energy into someone else's trajectory, you become the biggest beneficiary of that ripple effect. Ideas and knowledge uninvested are just wasted. The key is immediate action based on what you've just absorbed in this deep dive.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. Since success is something you attract by the person you become, and you now have the tools to manage your influences and accelerate your efforts, what is the single biggest commitment you will make today? Not tomorrow, but today. To stop being average. To be the exception.
Identify that one tiny discomforting action, that one extra rep, that one dissociated friend, that one piece of psychic clutter you're going to clear, and start tracking it immediately. Don't wait for some grand moment or a silver bullet. Just start being the person who is worthy of the extraordinary, accelerated success you desire.
So thank you for watching this deep dive. If this conversation resonated and you found these insights valuable, please like, share, subscribe, and follow up in the next video as we continue our exploration of accelerating success.